You want to take it off, take it over?
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for watching this from whatever you are watching at this presentation. Thank you for accepting the session to the camp team. And well, today I will be speaking about how the session name is called Embracing the Modern Web Using a Headless CMS with Gatsby. In this case, we can replace Headless CMS with WordPress, Drupal, or Airtable, or whatever we use as a Headless CMS. For the purpose of the session, I will be showing you how we use these technologies, this Headless CMS approach with Gatsby as a front-end strategy with WordPress and Drupal. And well, my name is Jesus Manuel Olivas. You can find me as JAMolivas in probably most of the social network places. And yes, GitHub is a social network. And you can find me on Twitter, GitHub, and all those different places, Drupal.org, hit that particular name. And well, I'm a co-founder of a company called How to Hit Right. It's a fairly new team. We're a professional services agency, and we specialize in front-end tools, cloud native architectures and automation, and obviously, a lot of CMS integration. We've been doing a lot of CMS I've been doing CMS, and our team been doing CMS integration for so long. We are taking advantage of our knowledge of CMSs and trying to bring into like headless CMS, approach with front-end tools like Gatsby in this case. And well, the agenda for this session will be something like topics about, I'm going to start with web development 101. And for those who are, been developing for so long, maybe that's will be like bring you some memories, then JAMstack, then WordPress, Drupal as headless CMS. Little, concepts of GraphQL, CMS, GatsbyJS, and finally, if time allows, we want to see a little demo about how to use Drupal and WordPress as headless CMS. And well, first, the initial topics I was mentioned, like 101. We can say, back in the day when we started working with web, I don't know how many of you remember, we used to build pages or sites only using HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript, right? Like full like vanilla JavaScript. No, back in the day before the jQuery days, right? And once those sites start getting more complicated, clients start asking for more advanced features. Kind of like, I want to be able to go to my site and change things, and I want to make those changes publicly available. Show up on my pages, And then this is when we're starting moving from like static sites or like plain HTML, JavaScript, CSS files to something more complex, as introducing a CMS. Maybe if you are aware of CMSs, you know about about like Drupal and WordPress. Well, that's what was happening, right? And back in those days when we used to work with the static sites, most people used to like make changes in their local machine and then, upload those changes or push those changes to their public server via FTP. And, for the more advanced people, they used to use like SFTP, like asking for something, user password authentication. For some other people, just, push those changes via FTP easily. Whatever, it's how it happened. But once we start creating more complex applications and more complex websites, we introduce obviously more complexity in the stack, in the framework we were using. And this is where the the monolithic stack start, getting more traction. At this point, like basic static pages were probably no longer an option because our clients want to update their sites, by themselves. And we end up introducing that CMS, right? When I say CMS, again, it's either just the CMS of your choice. But by introducing this new platform or this new CMS system, we also introduce more complexity, and it means the stack is getting more complex because we needed now a database system, and we need a server, and we need in order to publish our pages. And this goes something like this. Whenever a user log to our site, the visitor in this case, load a page in our site, then, that requests a page on the web server. It's your choice, either using Apache, Nginx or whatever. Then, that page that gets served, it gets, built dynamically on the server, via server-side rendering. What was happening in the background, it was that page was somehow calling a database. Running database query, pulling data from pulling some data from the database, and then once the data we requested was, resolved by the query, and just returning back to the page. Then whatever, if there was a list of elements, we iterate the list and we render the page. So we end up rendering HTML. So now we have the HTML we used to create it manually in our system and push to the server, but that was built via server side. Then once this page was built, and maybe this page is calling assets like JavaScript and CSS files, kind of similar to what we're doing before. But again, all the rendering part was doing server side. Once the final HTML page was built, it was returned to the browser, and then the user can see this page. And then systems start getting more complex, and we end up adding like more functionality, and we end up using APIs to calling other data. So again, we have something like this. Most of the processing, or the biggest part of the process was done server side. Again, so we have one big server who was rendering a page. Again, client requests a page, then server takes care of building that page for us. But the time changes, browsers start getting like more capabilities, phones start getting more power. And then a new concept was created, like single page application. With the difference between, single page apps versus the server side rendering, it's most of the computing, it was done on the client side. So in the opposite direction of the previous, processing happening on the server, in this case, what was happening, it's, client or user requests a page. So the server, instead of building all of the markup and iterating all of the result, it just returns you data as an endpoint. This is the data you're asking for, a list of elements with the properties, in a JSON version of the data we have on the database. And client, in this case, either the computer or the mobile, take care of processing the data and creating all the required markup to renderize a page. So it means if we receive a list of elements, it was the mobile, the one who was taking care of creating, the table, or or the, all the div elements or the paragraph elements or whatever markup we require to create a page. And as you might think about this, obviously it consumes more power from the computer, which is in the case of using a desktop computer or a laptop computer, maybe it's not a big issue. But if you think about this, by running this on a mobile, which is like probably not like one of those mobiles with more power, it is end up consuming more, CPU cycles, more mass compute time, so your batteries start draining. And maybe if your internet connection wasn't that good, maybe since you were requesting probably the whole set of data that you might don't need to render in this particular time, because you're requesting like hundreds of elements you might don't need to render in this particular view, you end up like requesting more data than you needed. But again, all of the computing was done on the client side. Again, the first iteration we have it like server side, the server takes care of rendering all the markup. Then we move to something called like single page application with all of the process, or most of the process was done client side. But then a new stack or a new approach, was it start getting more traction probably a couple of years ago. It's called JAMstack. And the stack for the JAMstack approach is kind of like this. So you visit, whenever a visitor load your page, so instead of your client like processing all the data, it's just, what has happened is just request the data, and the data, it's like magically already there. And what it's not a magic. We'll, explain where all this magic come from. But whenever someone requests your page, the page is already there. It's already built. So your mobile or your desktop, your device consuming the page, it doesn't have to take care of processing all the data. And because that page is already pre-built or pre-rendered, and it's served via a CDN. And why this happening, and how this is happening? Well, this is something called JAMstack, and JAMstack it stands for JavaScript, APIs, and markup. So think about the let's think about Drupal 8 at this moment. Remember all the the request response lifecycle that happens on Drupal now. I don't want to go too technical, but this whenever a visitor loads a page, something happened. There's a process happening. In this case, Symfony take care of, or going back, making sure the route is work. Loading the data. Remember this server side approach we think about. All that gets replaced by client side. You request the page, and all the request response lifecycle happen on client side via JavaScript. Most or all of the data that is coming or it's used to build your page is coming via APIs. So it means there's endpoints providing you with that data, so your client doesn't need to know how to extract the data other than having a particular URL that will be requesting that data that is coming from. And all the markup it's already pre-built, and that's why you can get all that markup and use exactly the same as back in the old days. We're pushing all your changes, all your files to a server via FTP or FTP. Just push all those files to a CDN. And this is how this looks like. Comparing this to the previous two approaches, server side and a single page application, this happens something like this. Now we introduce something that is called the build server. All the server side rendering is still here, but it's happening on a build server. And it just happened once. The difference between server side, every single time that you request a page, obviously you can implement all these caching layers to avoid hitting your backend, but every single time you go to the server, you run the same process, query your data, process your pages, build your pages, and then create a HTML representation for you and serve it and just give it to you. In the single page applications, instead, you query all the data, create a page on the client side, and then render the page. In this case, what is happening on the JAMstack approach, we introduce a build server. The build server take care of creating all the markup for you, pre-building all that markup for you, and then just push to a CDN. And the CDN is the one who's taking care of serving you the page. So, at some point you might be having, an endpoint that needs to do something on the fly, or maybe fetching data dynamically, like pages or products or pricing for when you're implementing an e-commerce, or maybe you need an API for posting data back, like a web form or something like that. So we still have some kind of server side, but it's minimum. It's not like taking care of every single request. It's just taking care of all those processes that require user interaction and somehow, persist some data on a backend. And now the same way we reduce the server processing, we reduce the client processing time, because the client only takes care of fetching the page and rendering the page on the browser that it's loaded, that the client is using, right? So again, most of the process it's moved to a build server, and the build server is the one who takes care of pre-building all your pages. It means your site it's pre-built, and that's what is fast, because once you load the page, all the markup and the data is already there. So you don't have to go in, requesting the data and build the data on client side. Or you don't have to go into the server side, running the query, building the pages, and and load the page for you. The page was already loaded. And which benefits this provides to us? It provides you the benefit of more performance sites, more reliability, sites are more secure, and hosting it start getting more cheaper. And performance, why those sites are faster? Because the markup is already revealed. And while those sites are more reliable, because you end up adding all those sites into CDN, servers. And whenever you ask a site, if the server is, the CDN is down, it's gonna, fetch the data from a different CDN, or you're just gonna fetch the data and you're just gonna, keep a copy and it's already, on the caching for you. And now those sites are more secure because you are decoupling the access to your server, to the main server who contains your database and all the things you usually have on a server, because you are only exposing the final result on CDN. And the hosting is cheaper because it's way more cheaper to host HTML files than having to host a database and hosting having a web server or having a language running on the server. all those different pieces that you need on a stack, and a monolithic stack. And talking about traditional and monolithic CMSs, I mean, we have Drupal and WordPress as an example. I mean, I don't have to explain this, but I mean, it's maybe if you are not aware or really familiar with CMSs, a CMS is an application that it's used for, for taking care of and managing content, right? You can have like multiple users entering, logging into the system and adding content for you. And this application allows you to edit and publish, content on that site. And why you should use Drupal or WordPress. Let's think about this. We really want to embrace all these modern new technologies. We really want to use Gatsby, but we still want to use a tool to manage our backend. Why we should choose WordPress or Drupal? Because maybe you already have a currency set of legacy sites that you don't want to like migrate to other platforms. It's a well-known and battle-tested interface. Your users are your content editors already know Drupal and WordPress, and they are, the graphical interface is familiar to them. They like the interface, so you can keep providing them with a chance to use, their CMS they prefer, but you can introduce a new like front-end strategy. And obviously, because all the user and content management capabilities, the same as the workflow, so you can enable, publish, have content in draft mode, and you can, easily implement those or keep implementing those or using those from the CMS of your preference. But what is a headless CMS? Let's think about, can we use, Drupal and WordPress as a headless CMS and having that piece of infrastructure running only on the build server time? Yes, we can, and we can use those as a headless CMS. And headless CMS is something we can call as the backend only CMS or a backend only content management system. And this system will be accessible to a RESTful or GraphQL API. So again, it's kind of like having your CMS, use the CMS for users to enter content and just allowing you to expose the data. And what will we use for this particular example? We'll use something called GraphQL. I don't want to go too deep into detail, but you can think about GraphQL as a query language for your API. So again, expose you with an endpoint that allows you to enter queries and fetch data from your backend. The nice thing about GraphQL is like heavily typed. So you can use, a tool called GraphQL that allows you to start typing things, and creating queries and all those queries. And it's kind of whenever similar to when you use like PHP Storm, when you start typing object something, it start auto-completing for you. This GraphQL allows you to do that because GraphQL is like heavily typed. And the benefits of using a tool like GraphQL, it's like more, team friendly for front end, for back end. It's easier to introspect because expose all the metadata for you of your backend system, and it's easier to find out which properties are existing or exposed from the API. And you can use as a single source of truth. It means you can use the same GraphQL endpoint for build time, and which is basically like server-side rendering, and on client-side. It means you don't have, whenever you are using this JAMstack approach, and again, most of the processing moves to the server for the build server time, it doesn't mean you cannot, access, all that endpoint via client side. Yes, you can, but you are minimizing the time you are going to, going and fetching data client side. And, provide you with a better developer experience because again, it's easier for front-end people figure out which data they need to, extract from the backend, and allow you to, to have a more consistent and shareable, development workflow. And talking about Drupal and WordPress, each one of those platforms allows you to have, access to GraphQL. There's a GraphQL module for Drupal. There is a GraphQL plugin for WordPress. So you are in a really safe place to using those technologies at this very moment. And well, for using those technologies and for building like our front-end side, now let's talk about using Gatsby. How about using Gatsby as a front-end strategy? But what is Gatsby? Gatsby, it is a free and open source framework based on React that allows you to build like websites. And if you remember, or you start using Gatsby like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, people think about Gatsby as an static site generator, which was probably the first marketing naming for the platform. but it's, the Gatsby it's been evolving a lot in a couple of years, and now it's not only like static site generator. Because Gatsby take advantage of the React lifecycle and allows you to fetch all the data. Remember the server, the build time for the server? There's build server who takes care of, fetching data from different places and build all your markup. Gatsby allows you to do that. So let's think about this. Let's think about, we have a GraphQL endpoint that is provided because we enable maybe the Drupal module or the Gatsby, about the WordPress plugin. Or we maybe want to build a page based on an external GraphQL endpoint that it's provided by someone else, by the custom CMS, like, another, custom build CMS. Or maybe we want to build, our pages based on something else. Maybe we want to build our pages based on a, a NoSQL storage like Firebase. So we can make Firebase expose that data via GraphQL. Or maybe we want to build our pages via the file system. It means we can build pages via using like JSON files, YAML files, common separate values files, or maybe Google spreadsheet, or maybe an Airtable. So a big benefit of Gatsby allows you to fetch data from different sources, create one single source of truth, and then use that data for build your pages. And if you're familiar with Drupal, think about this, kind of like how Drupal do for running migrations and fetch data from different places, and then get that data and add it into the database, and then you can create your pages using views, kind of like this, but without the need of storing that data somewhere else, other than in memory when the build time is happening, right? So again, Gatsby allows you to fetch data from different places, rendering all your markup, and creating your pages for you. And all those pages already contain all the markup pre-built. And then you can get those pages, deployed to a CDN, and the visitors of your site can start visiting your pages already with the markup already pre-built. But again, since Gatsby it's using React to creating your pages, you can take advantage of the React lifecycle. It means once you load your pages, you can keep fetching data from the same endpoints you use for building your page via client side, and fetching more data and do something that is called rehydrate your component, which is basically passing data that is, via client side, calling an endpoint, fetch more data from those endpoints, and get the data, pass the data to your React components, and your components can dynamically show more pages. What I mean is you can take advantage of calling data client side and update your components and show more data on your pages. So think about as I want to build a page where whenever it's the user not logged in, I'm just gonna show title and a little teaser. Whenever the user logs in, client side, I can fetch an extra set of data, like a different fields from my backend, like in this case, Drupal. Now I know the user is logged in. I can use that user session and pass back to my endpoint, and my endpoint is going to start returning me more fields with more data from the backend that I can use client side for rendering more, or for adding more data on my page that was already preloaded client side. It means my page could be loaded like 90% or 85%, and only the minimum amount that I require client side is loaded dynamically. Okay, so what will be another benefit of using something like Gatsby? Similar to what we have with Drupal. Drupal has modules, WordPress has, plugins. Gatsby has a way to extend, the functionality. That concept is called plugins, and plugins allow you to do several things. Allow you to extend your Gatsby site. Think about if you need it for adding external data or content. Think about whenever I need to add data from an Airtable, instead of having to create all the logic myself, I can use a plugin, and that plugin will take care of fetching the data, easily, just by providing some configuration. If I need to customize my GraphQL schema, it means I need to add fields on build time. Somehow I need to process something via build time. So we can take advantage of the GraphQL schema customization capabilities of Gatsby. what if I need to try, what if I need to, what if I need to transform data? Think about this. I mean, another benefit of Gatsby is do a great work for transforming data. So you can provide Gatsby markup, and Gatsby can take that markup and turn into HTML. So you can take advantage of this, of this feature of Gatsby and enable a Markdown WYSIWYG, editor if you want to on your CMS, and your users will be entering data as they usually do on a WYSIWYG, but instead of your CMS, the one who will be like rendering HTML, can store Markdown, can pass that Markdown to Gatsby, and Gatsby can take care of preprocessing all the data on build time, right? And obviously, another big benefit of using plugins is allow you to add like third-party services, like forms, comments, whatever you think about who should live in a third-party service, like an e-commerce service, the processing payments for an e-commerce service. All those features, you can provide that functionality to your Gatsby site by using a third-party, SDK, which is basically will be used on a plugin. And another benefit of Gatsby, it's and you will see a lot of similar things with Gatsby and Drupal and WordPress. It's Gatsby, even when it's maybe think about as a static site generator, allow you to do a lot of things as a CMS, like fetch data from different sources, transform data, extend your page. Another benefit of Gatsby is something called themes. And it's kind of a group of functionality that you can reuse. Think about as a plugin, it's a particular functionality. You can pack all that functionality like 3, 4, 5, whatever plugins you need to for one particular site. Create something like a profile, right? And reuse this functionality. Think about this. I want to, or I need to have in a standard look and feel for my sites. I want to have, or I need to have several sites with different backend. So regardless of the backend, I'm required to show the same look and feel site. So we can use a Gatsby theme to provide this functionality. It means I can have a WordPress site using WordPress as a headless CMS. I can have a Drupal site using Drupal as a headless CMS, and both systems can reuse the same Gatsby core theme and render the same final result. It means I can have 2 pages or many pages that look alike or the same regardless of the backend. So think about this in a system where you have already a huge amount of legacy sites, some on WordPress, some on Drupal, some on like Google Spreadsheets or a custom CMS. You can take advantage of Gatsby for doing something like this. But you are not forced to reuse the same theme and always make those sites look the same. You can also use the same theme and implement something called that is shadowing, which is basically a way to override how your team looks like. And you can implement something like this and reuse the same theme, but just change something. Let's change the header. Let's change the logo. Let's change colors. Maybe this particular site, it has to look different because of some reason, and I need to add a sidebar only for this site. But the rest of the site is gonna look exactly the same as my other hundreds of sites. It's totally doable. You can still reuse the same core theme and just change that particular layout, for that site. And what would be the big benefit of using a theme? You can share code and configuration. So it's not only look and feel. So you can share functionality as, this is a blog, or, this is a dashboard, or this is, whatever. It's not only look and feel, and allows you to, share and extend, the functionality. You can avoid like having duplicated code, and those are easy to update because you can have a theme, and whenever you need to change something, let's add a new feature to your different like hundreds of sites, you can just change your theme, provide a feature, and you can use that feature in your site. Let's say now I need to add this alert message because of something, or I need to add this new sidebar or this footer that it's it's changing. You know, maybe my branding is changing, and I need to update like my hundreds of sites. You can do that on a theme and share that functionality with the rest of your sites. I mean implementations. And what will be a reason? Okay, so talking all this, what will be a good reason for using a front end strategy for your site, kind of like Gatsby? Because allows you to iterate faster. You can deliver better work because allows you to use like modern front end tools and allow you to separate, you know, separation of concerns. So you can have your backend just living on the backend side of things. You know, you don't have to mess with your backend. So your front end people don't have to mess with the backend. They only worry about, you know, configuring or using your Gatsby for fetching data from that particular endpoint, and that's it. They don't have to worry about adding a new field, so whatever that field is going to appear whenever you change in the backend, right? And they only focus on working on the front end. And I mean, as a company owner, I can tell you it's easier to hire people who know React or front end than people who understand Drupal and they can do front end, or maybe they are good doing front end, but they have to deal with understanding Drupal and, you know, the array, you know, the theme system, or understanding Twig and all those different pieces that Drupal used to. And obviously you can enjoy, you know, the power of latest like modern web technologies. Which tools we use together with Gatsby? Other than, you know, than Gatsby and GraphQL, we do a heavy usage of something like Yarn, and you can use those technologies to provide a better level of experience. We use Yarn for having something we call monorepo, so we can have one single repo containing backend and front end, or, you know, this same different themes or different Gatsby sites in one single repository, and we can share across. We can use, I mean, Yarn for that. And we use Theme UI, which is a project that allows you to create like heavily, customizable themes for Gatsby. And we use the Storybook for building or React components. It means we can build our React components and build our pages and you can show that to your like the product owner or the your client without the need to having the backend ready. So you can start building your components using Storybook, share the link, and they will be happy. They will see everything looks like how I like it. Then you can implement those on your React side. And now let's go and jump to the little demo that I have here. So I already created this this WordPress site and this Drupal site. Both sites will be using the same. Let me move this here. Yeah. We'll be using the same Gatsby theme for showing the rendering the data. So we have two similar sites. Again, we have the Gatsby, Drupal site here and the WordPress site here. Both have 3 posts. Very simple stuff. You know, one is, in this case, is post number 3 is draft. Same thing for Drupal. This is draft. So let's move to my terminal, and I'm gonna let's show the WordPress site here first. WordPress develop. So what I'm going to do, I'm having those sites running locally on my machine. So either, you know, WordPress and Drupal are running on my machine, and I'm also running Gatsby on my local computer. Obviously, that if you really want, once you deploy this, it should be running on in a particular platform for those. But in particular case, I'm running this, you know, Gatsby site here. So whenever I click here, now it's my, as you can see, let's move this. This is my WordPress site, my Gatsby site built from my Gatsby content. So I have 2 pages here, page 1, post 1, post 2. And well, you can see the content is here. Site is really fast because what's pre-built. A big benefit of using this approach, you know, using a headless CMS and a Gatsby as a front-end strategy. It's, in this particular case, we are, allowing the user to use what they want. So they are, people love WordPress. So they can use WordPress. They can even use Gutenberg if they want to for providing data to their Gatsby site. And you can get that data via GraphQL, on your Gatsby site, and you extract only key values from the Gutenberg blocks and using the same React components that you can reuse whenever you are building your site coming from Drupal. Think about you can use, in Drupal, you can use paragraphs for building your content model. In WordPress, you can do a similar approach by using Gutenberg for building blocks, and you can extract data from those blocks and pass to your React components in order to render your site. So let's go to my site here, edit my site. I'm just going to change this one from draft to publish. I go publish, and now see it's appearing on my Gatsby site. And I already have, a configuration. It's kind of like, dynamic preview, live preview, however you want to call. So it means this page, whenever I enter something on my WordPress site and hit save, it's automatically built on my Gatsby site. So I go here, as you can see, this is my WordPress, my Gatsby site built from WordPress. All this data is coming from those components. So let's take a look at post number 2. And again, it's connected to my Gatsby site. So whenever I change something, it gets automatically published here. So again, as you can see here, this is my post, this is data, this is a paragraph, this is an image that is here. This is a quote that I can probably just go here and remove this block, then hit update, and the block is gonna disappear from here. It's disappeared now, so it's gone. Okay, so again, I have this WordPress site that is built from, this Gatsby site that is built from a WordPress site. I'm using, Gutenberg for providing blocks. And now let's switch to my Join Drupal develop. Now, instead of building this WordPress site, I'm gonna build this Gatsby from Drupal. I'm gonna build this Gatsby site from a Drupal. So the other one was a Gatsby site built from a WordPress site. This will be built from Drupal. And as you can see, the look and feel will be exactly the same because both are sharing the same Gatsby theme. So it's coming, it's building, it's coming, each page is created. Now I go to my site and boom, it's here. So site is here, look exactly the same. This site is built using paragraphs. And as you can see, we are using the same look and feel. So we are consuming our paragraphs, extracting the data, and just creating our React components. Similar approach that we were using on WordPress with Gutenberg. So now let's go to my Drupal site here, go to my home page, change the post number 3, go edit this one, and let's go and publish 3, post 1, 2. So 2 is the one that is unpublished. So number 2, edit and publish, save, and then magic is happening, and it's gonna come. It's here. So now my site is showing the post number 3. I can start looking at this, and the same approach that I'm using for for editing content on my backend and showing on my front end. I can do the same approach with adding new posts. So I can keep adding more pages on my backend. And since I have this connected via this live preview feature of Gatsby, I can provide that functionality, and show all this new content coming. And again, what we got here, it's 2 different backends. One is a Drupal site, the other one is a WordPress site, sharing the same Gatsby theme. So that's why the sites looks exactly the same. So regardless of the backend, you can provide the same user experience while visiting your site. And that's sites are fast, are secure. That's the benefit that the end user get from this experience. The benefit that your content people get from this approach is they can keep using their same backend system that they are used to and they love to use to enter data. And they can keep using whatever they need to use. They want to use WordPress with Gutenberg, they can do that. They want to use Drupal with Paragraph, they can do that. They want to use views, they can do that. They want to use, they like to use, view modes in Drupal, they can keep using those. And you can get that data on your Gatsby site from the backend and just build the front end using React, which is in this case a modern front end tool. And for that, then let's go to the next slide that I'm pretty sure it's the final one that is say, thank you. And maybe have a question. I'm happy to hear those questions. I think we have 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Unmute for clapping.
Yes.
So I have a question with you. One thing that I could find very might be challenging is to figure out where to do what. So you have commerce in Drupal, but you can also do a React commerce or Gatsby. I mean, do you have any rules of thumb as to where you put what functionality?
Well, it's obviously, or ideally, you should use the right tool for the job. So if you need to do like a commerce part, if Drupal is the best tool for you, use that one. It might be it's better to use something else, like a separate platform, for commerce that can allow you to do that. And that's good. That's a good choice. And that I'm aware that Drupal commerce, they are heavily embracing this modern approach. They are heavily using, in their case, they are using JSON API from what I'm aware. I'm pretty sure at some point they will have to start looking at GraphQL at some point. But they're providing you the card. You can build a card, like the card should be like front end friendly. And again, whenever you need to process something, whenever you need to use a storage mechanism for storing data, then it's the functionality should be used via a particular backend. It's either Drupal or Shopify or Salsify or Electric Path. I mean, that's the ones that came to my head at this very moment, but hundreds of those. Use whatever makes sense. Same thing as a form. I mean, I require to have a form submission. Should I use web form? Should I use an entity form? Should I use an external service that's Formic, or should I use like Google Forms? I mean, it's up to you. It's up to what you really need for that particular problem. But again, whenever you need to store data, whenever you need to, save data somewhere, somewhere else, this is the time that you need to use an API. Which API? That will be the one who fit better the need for that particular task.
For the Drupal paragraphs site that you have, how are you accessing that data in Gatsby? Are you using GraphQL or?
Yes, we are using GraphQL. I mean, 2 years ago, we started building sites with Gatsby and Drupal and WordPress, and we used to use REST, API in WordPress, JSON API in Drupal. Since last year, so we decided to switch to GraphQL because it's easier. It's easier for users, for your front-end people implementing those. So we are using GraphQL, and we have a similar approach that we used to use in Drupal. So again, we are really taking, and you don't have to, okay, so this is a good question. So you can take advantage of all your knowledge from CMS perspective and implement it on Gatsby. So how we manage to do this, we have a function that we call a component resolver, which is basically a preprocess, event that is happening on Gatsby build time that we can pass this particular paragraph field, which contains all the different paragraphs. And by creating something that is called GraphQL fragments, we can identify which type of field or which type of paragraph we are processing at that particular iteration. Let's say we have one paragraph with 5 different paragraph elements or items, has cardinality of 5. And each one of those paragraphs could be the same or could be different. So we can identify which paragraph type we're processing at that current, iteration. And based on that definition, because again, GraphQL is, provides you a lot of metadata from where it's being loaded. So we can identify, this is a paragraph blog, this is a paragraph media. So based on that, with that knowledge, then you can decide which key values extract from your GraphQL endpoint and map on to your React components.
Okay. Do you have any like GitHub sort of examples of that or things that you could point us to that way?
Yeah, I think we don't have a lot of those publicly available, but we're planning to release those.
Okay.
And I mean, we have snippets and tweets and information flying around the internet. But yeah, I mean, putting all those together in a single repo will be easier for people. And I mean, we're working on several blog posts too, and a series of blog posts to, you know, like, I mean, show people how we do this and help them to build things, I mean, in that particular, I mean, way.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Welcome. Yes, no question.
Oh, I keep asking questions till the cows come home. I was wondering, what do you think about when you have to decide between creating a native application and then going with this kind of a single page approach?
Well, I mean, for like consuming via mobile, not all, okay, well, I mean, it's whenever you really need to, I mean, you know, resources from the device, again, it's always, you know, it's the right tool for the job. And that's my easy answer for everything, you know. But that's a reality. You really need to do heavy usage of you know, or an I/O mechanism or feature of your mobile. You really need to take advantage of like CPU cycles, you know, like really, you know, processing something heavily. Maybe that's the time for doing something like really mobile. Yeah, that's the point. You're gonna ask, should I use, you know, then I need to build two systems, right? One for Android, another for, I mean, iOS, or you can probably do something like, oh, I go React Native instead of, you know, or Ionic or something, and you know, or I mean, whatever you need to, or maybe instead you build like little site that you can consume via your mobile and make your site aware of the device that it's using, and you know, limit the amount of resources you're serving the app based on the device that is consuming the client is using for visiting your site. But again, if you really need to use heavy, I mean, there's a real reason for consuming something that it's only available via the mobile app. That's, I mean, that's a good, I mean, a good answer for this. I mean, being sincere, I really like to build web pages or web apps instead, but that's what I do like to do.
Hey Zeus, I'll just repeat. There's a lot of thank yous in the Zoom chat.
Awesome. No, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming. I really hope you learned something. If you wanna ask me anything about this, feel free to reach me. I mean, either Twitter or, you know, I mean, or any other place, Drupal.org, GitHub, whatever. You can find me as JAMolivas, or you can just Twitter to my company Twitter account there, here.hq. I'm more than happy to answer questions. And again, we're planning to do this series of blog posts. We probably take advantage of this time that I won't be traveling too much to conferences and spend that time writing blog posts instead.
With that note, is there anything that you have seen with our conference or our camp that any feedback for us?
It's hard to see, because I mean, it's like, it's kind of, we are barely getting into like moving into this like digital only conference. It's really complicated. It's like, and I don't know, I mean, obviously we're going to miss, you know, the happy hour, like, but we can still have the happy hour from home, everyone, you know. But it's kind of hard. It's just, I mean, I'm just trying to adapt and see, I mean, what it's, but so far, I mean, it's other than making sure from home you have, I mean, the one who's presenting doesn't have a lot of internet issues, everything will be somehow fine. And again, thank you for organizing the event. I mean, it's a hard thing. I mean, and thank you for taking the decision for not going, I mean, in person, but not canceling the event, you know, making sure, I mean, the event's still happening and you can share I mean, we can still share with community and interested people via digital only event. So thank you all.
All right, everybody.